So now let's build a flow from scratch where we use approvals and a control statement, but we also connect to some different data sources. Now, in particular, if you attended any of the Power Up sessions, whether it's the model driven or the Canvas app session, you saw them work on this asset vision application. So this is an assets management system. Right now we're looking at the model-driven version with all the data stored in the common data service. And there's also a mobile version built on as a Canvas Power App. And so what happens is new assets are added by filling in this form, and then they're saved to the common data service. And so if you're in this room, we're going to assume that you dream of one day having all of your systems in the Microsoft Cloud, but we also know what reality looks like. And so in this demo, I'd like to take new assets, get approval on them, and then if they're approved, we'll add them to our on-premise database, our enterprise ERP. And in that way, we can use our modern asset approval UI and our mobile app, but still make sure that our legacy systems keep in sync easily. And so what that looks like kind of in a simple diagram, so we've got our Power Apps here. When a new item is added, we're going to go to Flow Approvals. We're going to look up the manager, the person that approved it, and then if it's approved, we'll insert it into the on-premise SQL Server database. So let's start by creating a blank flow. So here from our blank flow, we see some popular triggers here, and this dynamics one, when a record is created, is exactly what we want. So we'll choose the organization. We want Ignite Gov Biz Apps, and the entity we want to do the assets one. Assets. And so now we'll do an approval. So let's add our approval. We're not using the template. We're just going to add the approval action just directly here. It'll give us a little more flexibility. We can see some of the other options it provides. You can do anyone from the assigned list or everyone from the assigned list. We'll do anyone. That allows you to do like 3 or 4 or 5 approvers. We'll only require one of them or require all of them. So let's put in the title for the approval. We'll just say new asset. We'll do the serial number. How about who's it going to assign to? We're going to assign this to Betty Bosswoman. It's going to come from me. And then for the details, we'll say approve new asset. And you can do a lot more here. You can write a whole HTML email if you want. And then we'll do an item link. To do the item link, let's go back to our model-driven app. And when we open up one of these assets here, we'll see everything in the link. To the left of this ID here is the link to that item. And then the ID is what's specific about that record. So let's take the first part of that, and then we'll put in the asset ID. And then for the description for that link, we'll just say click here for details. So now let's add on. We need to add on a new step here. Add on a control step. And so we're going to add on a conditional here, just like in that template. So if the response is approve, in this case, we're going to insert the record into the database. If not, we're not going to do anything. So let's come over here to our system. And so here is the database. We just select here. We can see that we've got similar sort of data that we have in the model-driven application here. So when the asset was created, how much it cost, last inventory. And we've only got one record in there that's been done in the last day. Now on here too, I've installed the on-premises data gateway. And so this is a connector that lives on-premise, connects up to the Azure Service Bus, looks for activities to do that are from Flow or Power Apps or Power BI. And to sign in, we can just check to make sure it's connected. So let's just check in or sign in to our Flow account that we're using. So we can see it's ready, working on Power Apps and Microsoft Flow. And also, of course, if you always have trouble too, you can do a network ports test. It'll try to make sure it can connect and give you some details too. So it's always a good thing if you get stuck on this. But it seems to install pretty easily. So now let's go to the other side here and let's add an action to insert a row in SQL Server. So we'll choose our SQL Server connector and we'll insert row. So let's create a new connector here, a new connection here. We're going to connect via the on-premise data gateway. The connection name is just simply how it's going to be listed here in our list of available connections. So we'll say on-prem ERP for Ignite. Now we need the SQL Server name and the database name. can see here that my server name is on-prem and my database name is asset ERP. So we'll put in on-prem and asset ERP, and then we put in our credentials to the database. And we can see the gateway here, and this is the gateway name that was assigned on the other side, on the server. So when I click create, it's going to try to connect. And then once it's connected here, it pulls back a name of tables available to us. There's my assets table. When I choose the assets table, we'll see all of the columns that are in the database. So again, here we can use our dynamic content pane, and we'll put in from Dynamics the asset ID, when it was created on. You see here it filters out to only dates because it knows this is a date type from the database. So created on, the acquisition cost, contract number, last inventory date, PR number, and finally serial number. So now let's save this and put it in test mode. We create a new item in the model-driven application. We can track this through. So let's flip over to the model-driven application. Let's create a new asset. We'll do rotoring aircraft, serial number, ignite, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, property tag, ignite, catalog item. Let's see, let's do that, control number, bureau, last inventory date, and then we're just going to skip everything that's optional here, so we'll just put in some of these numbers. And the acquisition cost, $1 million. So now I'll save this, and then we can watch here our flow, see if it picks it up. So it found the record, and we can dig in here and we can see some of the detail that it found. It started an approval. Now we come over to our approver here. Here's our approval for a new asset. I'll be like, get this in the system. Confirm. And now we see we got the approved, and it inserted a row into SQL Server. So if we come over here to our database, let's rerun our query. We see now there's 2 items, and here's our new one for $1 million. Now it's possible you're saying, this is great, but I just saw you harass Chris with a bunch of tweets and text messages. What's to prevent someone from tweeting out something here? And so let's talk a little bit about a few of the administrative controls. One of them is data loss prevention policies. And so this allows you to control what connectors people can use. So let's create a new policy here just so you can see how this works. So you can choose which environment, so whether it's your staging or your production. And then you can, the connectors are divided into 2 groups, business data only or no business data allowed. And so people are not allowed to create flows that connect connectors from one group to another. And so we're going to add all of ours into the business data only, but we'll leave Twitter in the no business data allowed. So let's add in some of these. We'll add these guys here, Dynamics, let's see, SQL Server. And then let's also add in approvals, of course, and also text analytics. So let's give this policy a name. And we'll save it. So now let's come back to our flow. And let's try to add a Twitter connector. So we'll say post a tweet. Let's say we just spent, and we'll put in the acquisition cost. And we'll save it. When we do that, it says your flow is updated but is currently suspended because it uses a combination of connectors that conflict with data company loss prevention policies. And so when we come back here, we'll see that our flow is turned off. And if I try to turn it on, it's going to turn it back off because it realizes it conflicts with that policy. Now if I come back in here and I remove the Twitter connector and save it, Now when I turn it on, it allows it to stay on. So it's an example of how you can have some control. There's a lot of other administrative and governance types features. That's a small example of how you can have some control over how people in your organization are using this.